guys, it's Lizzie. Today's video is 5 reasons bipolar relationships fail. I made a video a year ago called Why Bipolar Relationships Have a 90% Divorce Rate. And I've made several other videos giving relationship advice for anyone who's dating someone who is bipolar or anyone who, like me, has bipolar disorder. My whole intent of this video is to be encouraging and to empower you guys, equip you with tools to prepare in advance for what could happen and how to fight against it and stay together and have a healthy, flourishing, long-term relationship. I know a lot of people are gonna get offended by this video and say that I'm requiring too much effort, too much work, that I'm demanding too much of you in your relationship, but you really need to get in reality and we need to work even harder than most people to maintain a healthy relationship. Number 1 is detachment and depression. So this is something unique that will happen to the person who is bipolar, where we'll go through a period of time that could be a week, several weeks, a couple months, where we completely lose all attraction, interest, emotions towards the other person. It's as if we forget who they are emotionally, are suddenly so insecure about the relationship. We don't want to be in the relationship, not attracted to you. Detachment isn't necessarily correlated with depression, but I think it is more likely to be in detachment when you are in depression, so watch out for that. And the whole detachment, it's not only that I don't want to be with my significant other, but I feel like he doesn't want to be with me and he's not attracted to me. He doesn't love me. I don't feel loved in the relationship. I don't feel like I want to be in the relationship. I've read hundreds of messages of people detailing all the problems in depth in their relationship. And the same pattern happens again and again because of the detachment, where it is breaking up, getting back together, breaking up, getting back together, breaking up, getting back together. And it's the person who is bipolar who is usually doing the breaking up because they go through this period, this desert period of not feeling any attraction, not wanting to be with the person, and it's literally just their brain, just caused by the bipolar. It's not at all how they actually feel. It says nothing about how the relationship is actually going. So the way to get around this, if you are not the one who is bipolar, assure them so much when they're in those periods of how much you love them, how much you care about them. Give them more attention and just extreme amounts of emotional assurance. During this detachment, make them feel extremely loved and wanted and needed. Give even more assurance than you usually do because they're feeling so like you don't want to be with them, so insecure in the relationship, and they need to be loved more than ever before. And it can be so hard because they're pulling away from you emotionally and they're showing all these signs and even telling you that they're not into you right now and don't want to be in the relationship. But you kind of have to pursue them even stronger and make them realize how much you really, really care. And even when they don't feel it or cannot conceptualize within themselves why they're in the relationship, if you're there and you're fighting for them and you're loving them, that can keep the relationship intact. So if you're the person who is bipolar, like me, what I recommend is having a rule where you never break up, ever. If the relationship ends, it's your partner and you having an in-depth conversation and deciding together to end the relationship. But I know myself, and in my current relationship, I decided entering in that I would never break up with him because I knew my brain, I knew my detachment, I knew I'd go through these highs and lows where I suddenly wouldn't want to be with him. And so I decided in order to have a healthy relationship, I just refused to ever break up. It's a rule where it's impossible. I'm not allowed. And obviously, if you have physical or emotional abuse going on, you need to leave the relationship, but that's a small percentage of cases. And if that does happen, make sure to get people in your life, your family and friends, get their perspectives as well for what's actually happening in the relationship, and then decide kind of as a group collectively to end the relationship. But you cannot trust yourself. And it could get really unhealthy. I know if they're trying to gaslight you or manipulate or control you, they could convince you that your perception is wrong and you don't know what's actually happening in the relationship. So it's really scary, but you need to commit to accept that your perception can be wrong a lot of the time. Number 2 is the most obvious, but it has a lot of facets to it that I want to explain. So that is not staying on meds, going off your bipolar medication, ditching your psychiatrist, ditching your treatment plan. I made an entire video talking about why bipolar people go off meds and kind of encouragement to anyone else who has bipolar like me for why, yes, I've gone off meds 4 or 5 times in the past 3 years, but I always go back on my meds. And so I've had the experience of wanting to be off meds, impulsively going off meds, and I've decided to keep going back on, especially for the sake of my romantic relationship. I've been on my meds for 1.5 years, and the only reason I've been able to stay on is because of my boyfriend. Because I love him so much, and valuing our relationship and realizing that I need to be sacrificial and stop craving the mania like a drug addiction and actually value him above myself. So I'm going to link the video up here and in the description about bipolar meds that explores the topic in even more depth. But my advice is, if you have bipolar and if you're the one who's dating or married to someone who is bipolar, you need to do a ton of your own research. Go to Google Scholar, research symptoms, medications, symptoms of medications, read blog posts, watch YouTube videos, get as much information as possible about bipolar. You need to fight for your treatment plan, and if you are the one who isn't bipolar, you need to fight with your significant other for their treatment plan. So when you go to a psychiatrist, don't just let them prescribe you whatever medicine they want without talking to them. If you feel like you are being numbed down too much by your antipsychotic to the extent that you don't feel like a full person anymore, you feel like you lack all of your emotion, you don't feel human, this is not the norm. You can go on different medications that make you feel like a full person and make you feel human. A lot of people will have a bad experience with one medication and then decide, I don't want to be medicated at all anymore. And it's this super black and white thinking where your current meds and how they're affecting you, you think that's the only way any meds could ever affect you. And I used to think like this so much. If I didn't like the medications I was on, I just stopped seeing my psychiatrist and was like, I'm going off all my meds. I hate this. But looking back on that, it's so foolish, honestly, because there are several dozen different types of mood stabilizers, antipsychotics, antidepressants, and you can be on a combination of meds at the same time. So it will take months and months. It could take up to 1 year to find the perfect medication balance. But the answer is not going off your meds completely. The answer is finding a good medication balance. And other things that also help with your treatment are working out every single day, so doing cardio, getting enough sleep, having a consistent sleep schedule, and eating a really healthy diet, eating at the same intervals throughout the day. So if you're married to someone who's bipolar, you can have the same sleep schedule. You can go to bed with them early, wake up early, sleep for 8 or 9 hours every night. You can work out together. You can go running, go to the gym, motivate them, be their accountability person to work out and to eat healthy and to have a consistent sleep schedule. Don't drink alcohol if the person who you're with who's bipolar has been self-medicating with alcohol and they're addicted to alcohol. And like I said at the very beginning of the video, you could be getting offended right now if you're the one who isn't bipolar, like, why do I have to take care of them? That's too much effort. But it's a 90% divorce rate. So you really have to be above and beyond and perfect and so amazing at taking care of them if you really want the relationship to work. And I'm also linking below an article in the description. I'm gonna call it Best Bipolar Article Ever. And I really recommend reading it because it talks about a lot of the issues with psychiatrists and treatment plans and how to get around that. Number 3 is making the other person feel silenced or minimized. So, like I was saying with 2 numbers ago, where you could gaslight or really be abusive towards the bipolar person in that they cannot trust their own perception, so you could kind of create a different reality for them. So something that is really common is that if someone gets angry or hurt by what you say or what you do, the non-bipolar partner will say, you're just being manic right now, you're just depressed, it's just your bipolar, that's why you're hurt by what I said, that's why you're getting sensitive right now. And you'll completely erase and minimize the emotions of the person who is bipolar. And it's really, really awful, because just because someone has a heightened sensitivity to crying because they're currently in a depression episode does not mean that what you said was not hurtful, does not mean that what you said was kind and helpful and necessary. Just because someone is a bit more sensitive, or if they're manic can get a bit more angry in their reaction, doesn't mean that anything you say, their reaction is wrong and they're just being sensitive. I find that a lot of times when you're in mania or depression, you're able to access more truths of your emotions. You're able to see facets of truth that you were not able to see if you're not in an episode at the moment. Instead of saying, are you manic right now? Or is this just your bipolar? Or you're just in depression right now. What I said isn't hurtful. When you say things like that, it silences, minimizes, it makes the person who is bipolar feel so hurt and feel like you don't care about their perspective, don't care about their emotions, and most importantly, that you don't care when you hurt them. Just because they're more sensitive when they're in depression doesn't mean that you making them cry is meaningless and that you shouldn't comfort them, or that you think it was okay what you said, therefore they're wrong, therefore go cry by yourself, I don't care about your emotion just because you're in depression. Does this make sense? You should never ever ever say, this is your bipolar, you're being manic, you're being depressed. Even if that's true, you should just never ever ever say that, and be really careful to always hear and validate their emotions. The way to validate emotions is to just ask questions and apologize. Even if you think you did nothing wrong, say, I'm so sorry for hurting you. What did I do to hurt you? I'm so sad you're crying right now. How can I make this right? And also, when it comes to erasing or invalidating the bipolar person's emotions, if the bipolar person is in detachment and feels like you don't love them, instead of being like, you're just in detachment, why are you feeling like that? You're illogical. I hope no one would actually say this. I've never experienced this before. I'm just thinking what could happen, right? So instead of saying those things or just kind of pushing it away like, oh, it's just their bipolar, like, these are real emotions they're experiencing and it's really sad. And so just go out of your way to show even more love to them when they are in depression, to assure them in the relationship. Number 4 is financial problems. So I think this is really high up. This and someone cheating when they're in a manic episode are probably the biggest things that cause divorce. What I recommend is, if you have bipolar disorder, do not own a credit card. Have a debit card, a checking account. I personally have had so many issues with money this year especially, and I've asked my parents several times to take control of my bank account because I just do not trust myself. I spend all my money. It's horrible. It's like physically impossible for me to not spend money. It's really because I've been manic the whole year. And so if you're married to someone, and my boyfriend and I have already discussed this, I'm not going to have access to the bank account. I'm not going to have a credit card. My income is going to go into the main account and I'm going to kind of get money given to me. And like I said with number 2, this can come across as really abusive and it can become unhealthy. But if you're in a healthy relationship, you have to be able to trust your partner that they're going to take care of the money and you're going to be half-half in how you're taking care of the household and in how you're spending and how you're living. You have to trust them that it's going to be fair. So merging your bank accounts together when you are married is a horrible idea. I would just never trust yourself. Even if you've been balanced on medication for years and have not been in an episode in a while, it just takes one manic day and you could spend thousands of dollars, you could get in debt, and it's just not worth it. So I really recommend to hand over the finances, hand over the credit to the person who's not bipolar. Hopefully they are someone who is very, very financially responsible. But if you're bipolar, it's just not worth the risk, and money problems can so easily ruin a relationship. It's really important to be on the same page. Don't merge bank accounts, don't have access to your bank account, and do not own a credit card. And again, like I said at the start of the video, you might think that this is too far, too demanding, extreme, but the reality is 90% divorce. And so you really have to be extreme to protect the relationship long term. And number 5 is staying broken up and not fighting for the relationship. Get back together if you have broken up. I just think that you're going to have a chaotic relationship. It's going to be rocky regardless. And the best thing you can do long term is to not give up, keep fighting. As long as the person is committed to staying on meds, continuing their treatment plan, as long as they're committed to not cheating on you when they go on manic episodes, which I know is kind of impossible for some situations. I know if I was dating or married to someone who was bipolar and they went manic and cheated on me, I would take them back. But you don't even want to get into that situation, so stay medicated to make sure that that never happens. Don't be in the same bank account so that you don't go in debt and ruin the relationship and cause a permanent split to the relationship. So do all the things 1 through 4, and then if you do break up, get back together, fight and fight and fight and fight for the relationship, because it can be really beautiful. And I know people with bipolar are even more emotional, more intense. We have a fuller, more beautiful grasp of experiencing emotions. We're so passionate and creative. And so it can be such an amazing, intense, beautiful love story. And so I really just want to encourage you guys that there will be so many hard days, hard weeks, hard years when you're in a relationship and one of you has bipolar disorder, but it is worth it to stay together and to keep fighting, and I think it will make both of you stronger people. I'm a Christian, so I'm really into shaping your soul, becoming more virtuous. I think that being in such a challenging situation will make you even better as a person and even better parents, because you're so connected and self-aware and emotional intelligence, because you have to be making this work. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!